Actor John Leguizamo bashing opponents of critical race theory and slamming parents who don't want it taught to their kids. Here's just part of the rant he posted on social media. Watch.
You bent the out of shape about critical race theory? Well, the good news is you might not be a racist. You might just be ignorant of what the hell CRT is. Basically, it's a bunch of legal scholarship and academic thinky talk that just tries to figure out what systems are in place that over minorities in the U.S. in subtle ways, rather than by full-on, in-your-face racism. Like, is a black person unable to get a loan that a similar white person could get because the bank loan officer is a colossal sheet-wearing racist asshole? No one is teaching this stuff to your young kids, so calm the down. It's pretty highbrow college-level stuff. And if your kids go to college, they're going to definitely be exposed to this, whether you agree with it, no matter what you think, okay? So again, calm the down.
Ooh. So, David, the argument here is that, yes, he's correct to a degree, but that's where the origins of CRT lay, and that now it has been disseminated and expanded, not only in concept, but also to, yes, down to kids as young as 4.
Research is pretty clear as to what parents want out of schools. They want reading, writing, and arithmetic taught. They want the students to be free of political agendas, whether that be on the left or the right. And in research that we have done, Americans would actually like to see financial literacy taught in schools. All that to say, parents want their children taught the basics to be good, productive citizens, and so much of CRT is the exact opposite.
Right, and to that end, Morgan, at least 25 public school districts in 12 states are now teaching a book called Not My Idea, a book that claims whiteness is the devil, luring children with the promise of, quote, stolen land and stolen riches.
Yeah, so I don't really know who this actor is, Emily, but I find it just a little silly that someone who's swearing and using the F-bomb constantly wants to talk about what our children should be taught. Maybe he should clean that up a little. But listen, I will say what's interesting to me is how this is becoming a religion. I think the CRT theory, for people who believe it, they believe it emphatically. In fact, there's almost an evangelism part of it, right? And how they're trying to spread their beliefs on this theory. I don't think there's a person in America who doesn't think that some of the most evil things in our history, like slavery, should be taught. Making sure students understand what Juneteenth is, that should be taught. I think parents around the country completely agree with that. We have to learn how we overcame the worst parts of our history and how we still have more to do. I think all reasonable parents could agree with that. We're just asking people not to target children and tell children that they're bad based on their skin color.
Right, and Harris, that's part of the argument as well, that when the defense of this is, well, we want kids to understand what honest history looks like, the rebuttal is, well, that's not honest history, right? This is sort of a gross characterization, a very extreme view that doesn't account for all of the nuances and not putting people into boxes that they don't want to be put in, or have that conversation that's much broader than that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that this is happening with another backdrop going on, the taking down of statues and erasing parts of history, but where you could put up an additional plaque to explain that person's role in history and measure the distance between then and now by progress and change, right? But we want to do what with that? We want to legislate how the words are put about history and who the bad guys and the good guys are, and not fill in the gaps of how great the moments were during and now. And do we have more to go, farther to go? Of course we do. I mean, the pandemic and healthcare have shown us that in the last year and a half, right? I mean, there are inequalities and unfortunate pockets of society where we really need to work on things. But I don't really understand how you can have all of these things going on at the same time and not respectfully ask, when do we just get to tell the truth? Why do you have to paint someone as bad based on what their historical ancestors did? I am not the same person that my great-great-great-grandmother was as a slave. And my grandmother, who died a few years ago, just shy of her 101st, who saw so much history in this country, can tell you that, yes, the best is yet to come, but there have been some great moments since then, too. Like, why can't we study all of it together? We've got a Black History Month, we've got a, Hispanic Heritage Month. That's all fine if people want to do that. But I don't think kids are learning enough about American history. And for my biracial family, that matters to me. I'm sure it matters to a lot of people.
And Kayleigh, part of the message there from that is that if you dare to ask questions or push back at all in the slightest, you're labeled as dumb, to use his words.
Yeah, exactly. I recognize some Democrat talking points. It's funny, it only takes, a few days and you start to realize what the DNC is probably sending out, I would imagine. You listen to what he said, it sounds an awful lot like what you're hearing from the left-wing media, with MSNBC's Chris Hayes saying, Republicans have whipped us into a moral panic. Jem Acosta saying this is the latest outrage device. Don Lemon, bad faith efforts by Republicans to make critical race theory a wedge issue. And I could go on and on and on. The theme of the Democrat talking points are, we're not teaching it to young children. We are. You gave us proof of that. And it's only being taught in higher education. False, false, false. These are the Democrat talking points. Recognize them.